edition of Cheers to Careers. I'm Steve Ridinghouse, the Career Outreach Coordinator at the School of Journalism and Mass Communications at KU.
Welcome to another episode of Cheers to Careers. Today I'm joined by Elizabeth Romme, KU journalism grad. I'm Steve Ridinghouse, Career and Outreach Coordinator at the Journalism School. Elizabeth, welcome.
Thanks so much, Steve. Great to be here.
And I know your current position, you're account supervisor with Dentsu Creative. Tell me about how that position is going.
Yes, so it's exciting. I've been in this particular role at Dentsu for going on 2 years here in a couple of months. It is, so I'm on the Subway account, Subway being, the sandwich chain. Here in New York, there's a lot of confusion. Do you do marketing for like the MTA Subway that we all ride on to work? No, the sandwich chain, the largest QSR brand in the world. It's really exciting. Subway is kind of in this renaissance phase at the moment. Ever since 2021, we rolled out a whole new marketing campaign. And then from an operational standpoint as well, Subway as a brand, as a company, has had a complete overhaul. They've changed their menu. They've made a much more intentional movement to get better food and yada, yada. So, we're the brains behind, okay, well, how do we tell the world about what Subway has done to make their food taste better, their stores look nicer, all that good stuff. So it's been really fun, and joining since 2021, it was kind of the best time to hop on. So I would consider myself lucky that that's when I jumped into the madness. But it's been great. It's been truly rewarding because you have sales figures to back up the work. Subway's doing really, really well. And a lot of that the CEO will attribute to the marketing, which is pretty cool. So short answer to your question is, all in all, it's been good, really exciting and really rewarding. Definitely challenging at the same time.
And you talk about being in this position for a couple of years. I know transitioning from jobs during the pandemic had to be a challenge. Were there any particular challenges about the timing?
Definitely. So yes and no. So the beauty of trying to get a new job, although I should say I didn't actively try to get this one. They came to me. I was content enough in my former role at McCann. But the beauty of interviewing for another job when you are virtual is you don't have to say, oh, my pipe burst, or oh, I have a dentist appointment. So that was one thing that I was like, okay, well, this is actually like a lot easier. But challenging in the sense of, yes, this is a completely virtual role. A lot of agencies have returned to the office. I don't know any that have gone back 5 days a week. This hybrid model really has been adopted and accepted across the board. For us, it is optional to be in office. And even on my immediate team, we're in Chicago, Miami, Florida, Jacksonville, and then here in New York, a couple of us. So the challenges that would have come with starting a new job virtually are just you miss that face-to-face time, like to learn an entire new brand and all the ways of working and just build human relationships is a little bit harder through a screen. But, I've done what I can. And I think there are plenty of events that do bring us together. At this point, I think I actually have met just about everybody in person through various shoots, really is kind of what brings people together, or, like a yearly client briefing down in Miami or whatever it might be. But I totally miss like the normal office in-person interactions we used to have, like grabbing lunch with someone and all of that good stuff. So I am in the office today. I go in maybe like 2 days a week. But yeah, I think, there's some good and some bad with it.
So as an account supervisor, how many members are part of your team, or does that vary based on the project?
Yeah, so with us, it's quite consistent. And I think I can at least speak from my past experiences. It has been consistent. It doesn't necessarily fluctuate project to project. The accounts are, scoped and staffed accordingly. So I can tell you the structure on my team. I have an EVP, Executive Vice President. We have a VP, and then we have a director, then myself, the supervisor, an account executive, and then an associate account executive. So we're pretty well staffed, which is great. We've been lean at times. I mean, you know how it goes, it fluctuates, people leave and it's hard to hire new people or whatever, but we're well staffed right now and it's a really solid team. So we're a well-oiled machine, I like to call us.
Now, I know you were a December grad at KU, correct? And then I think
I was
early in 2017, you went to New York. Was New York always, was that the dream?
It was, and like looking back on it, in a sense, okay, it's a little cheesy, but like I will absolutely admit it, like that was my total dream, and I was all gears towards I am going to get to New York. I had been there one time, actually, the advertising club through the School of Journalism had taken me there, so that was my junior year of college, and I went to New York for those couple of days, maybe I think it was 3 or 4 days. Went to some companies, some of those being ad agencies. I fell in love with the city, the energy, all the shiny big stuff in New York that to this day I still love. And I went home and told my parents, Mom and Dad, I will be moving to New York post graduation. And my parents, they said, they told me maybe a year after I'd moved here, we knew you were going to do it. You always do what you say you're going to do. So yes, it was. And I truth be told, I didn't even really look at jobs in Kansas City. I really went I flexed every muscle I could, every connection to get to New York. So it was kind of the dream. Yeah.
And I know early in your career, your start, kind of a scary start. I know you're involved in a serious accident.
That's right.
You recovered from that? I mean, I know that was very scary.
Right. Yeah. So, it was 2 months to the day of me living in New York. Barely even had my feet on the ground. And I was in a hit and run accident. I was hit by a car, which is unfortunately not really all that uncommon here in this big, crazy city. So here I am, I guess this March is 6 years from that, which is hard to believe. I would say for all intents and purposes, yes, I am thankfully recovered, which is a beautiful and somewhat miraculous thing I'm very thankful for. So yeah, not the most smooth start, especially, we're talking very much career centric right now. And even from a career standpoint, okay, that was 4 months that I missed of work. And I worked for a great company at the time and they kept my job. And not only that, were extremely supportive, invited my family into the office and all of this. They were wonderful. But yeah, 2 months into my career and I had a big hiatus. So, not the way you would have written it, but it's the way it went. And, I just kind of worked with it. It turned out to be all right.
Did you ever have any doubts like, wow, is New York really the place for me? I take it.
I did. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. And a lot of people ask me that, like, even, are you going to come home? Because, I'm from Kansas City. Are you going to come home to recover? All of those different questions, which I think are fair questions. But that never was really in my mind. It was kind of, let's get over this hurdle. Let's get back at it. So that's what I did. All in New York.
Was there a lot of physical rehab involved? I know you said you had some time off, but
Yeah.
I would imagine after that you still had some physical rehab. And I know you were very determined to make it to your commencement the following May.
Yeah.
You're in a wheelchair at that time.
That's right. Yeah. So I was in the wheelchair for 3 months. Lots of rehab. Definitely a lot of physical rehab for that. Essentially, once I got out of the wheelchair and was able to walk again, I just kind of started to regain some of that strength. I went back to the office not shortly thereafter. So, and the company was good. I mean, again, they were welcoming and kind of just, you do what you can sort of thing. So yeah, definitely a lot of rehab, but I would say the kind of the good thing in that is that by the time I had gone back to actual work, that I was in relatively good form. So that was good.
How much did it mean to you to kind of be around friends for commencement at Memorial Stadium in May?
Yeah, it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. That day, I will never forget that day. There actually was a picture I have. I think it ended up in the Lawrence Journal World, actually. It was pretty cool. And a couple of J school kids in there too. And it was us on the field and I'm in my wheelchair and it was cool. It was kind of like a triumphant picture. So, yes. Okay. Well, I physically didn't look well and I wasn't well at that time. There was better things to come on the horizon. Like the hope was there and sure enough, made it through. So that was a great moment, really. Yeah. That weekend.
And speaking of some of your friends, I know one of the photos you shared that we can include in this podcast. I recognize a couple of faces. I think Sean Murray.
That's right.
They're part of the New York crew too, right?
They are. Yep. Both Sean and Danny are still here. They're kicking backside. They're doing awesome. So yeah, they're good, great J school friends that I still see here in New York.
And were they part of that same ad club trip to New York?
They
Or-
were. They
Oh,
both were. Yep. Sean and Logan Hassig and myself were
Yeah.
kind of the planners behind it all.
And Logan's
And
another
then
one in
Danny
New-
was there.
And Logan's in New York too, right?
That's right. Yep. Yep. Logan's still here. I actually, we lived together for a while. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, Log is still a dear friend. Yep.
And I noticed on your LinkedIn profile, there's a message you had that really resonated about value human relationships more than anything.
Mm.
Has that been kind of your mantra throughout your college and professional life, or is that just a recent message you try to follow?
I would say it's been a mantra my entire life. And I think, yeah, it's my LinkedIn profile. And from times, at times I have thought, oh, this isn't really like a professional summary, but I was like, you know what? I don't care. This explains who I am. And this is something that I do value in my professional life. So it's appropriate and I like it. I think it's something that I've always just loved. I love making friends. I love meeting people. It's my favorite thing. I try to make a new friend every other day, even some days every day, especially if I'm coming into the city. And I think like really the reality of it is if you want to get anywhere in your career, you're going to have to win people over. And usually the ones that are the hardest to win over are the ones that are going to probably catapult you the farthest. So I think, that is a huge part of what we do, the human relationships. And also not to mention, it's just really fun. Like it's fun to be friends with the people you work with or, be in good graces or whatever it is. You can't always win over all the clients. Some of them are really challenging, but yeah, it's something I definitely have taken into professional life, but I think really it's rooted in personal.
And do you have much time? I know you're extremely busy with your work, but to get involved with the community in New York, I thought I saw also like a New York Cares. Is that something you're still a part of?
That's right. Yeah. So New York Cares is really just a huge organization that really just gives you outlets to volunteer and to do community service. So I guess I kind of realized, it's funny when I got to New York, I was like 22 years old. And I remember you finish work and you're like, well, what am I going to do? There isn't like homework or studying. And I'm like, I better do something good with this time. And I think it could have been the first time in my life where I wasn't like required to do community service. And I was like, I actually really miss that. So anyways, I've learned about New York Cares. I've done a few soup kitchen visits through the years. Something I've really enjoyed though is I've tutored high school kids on their PSATs.
Oh.
So, and that's fun. I mean, the kids are great. They're really receptive and I'll end up like proofreading their papers like for other classes and whatnot even. So it kind of goes beyond that, but it's fun just to build a relationship with those young kids. They're like 15, 16. They're all over the city. So that has been something I never would have known about if it wasn't for the New York Cares organization. So it's a good one. I like that a lot.
And during your time at KU, didn't you also study abroad one semester?
So I didn't technically study abroad, Steve. What I did, because I already knew I was going to graduate early, so I really wasn't in need of additional credits or even like, spending a summer in school. However, I did want more professional experience and, I wanted to make some money if I could. So I actually got on LinkedIn and I just looked for KU alums in Dublin, Ireland. I was determined to get to Dublin. I'd always wanted to go to Ireland and Logan had gone the summer prior. She had loved it. And so lo and behold, I was able to find a couple of KU alums who had jobs in Dublin, Ireland. And one of them I ended up interviewing with and it went through and I went and worked with Emily for like a proper 12-week internship in Dublin. So it was, there definitely were some hurdles because I had to figure out my own citizenship, my own visa and all of my own place to live and all that craziness, like study abroad. I can see where it's, much more just simple in that sense, but it was great. That was a really rewarding experience too. That was pretty fun. And I still talk to Emily to this day. So pretty cool.
So what semester did that happen?
That would have been the summer of 2016. So going into senior year.
Okay. Right before your last semester. Okay.
That's right.
You must have graduated early then.
I did. I graduated one semester early.
Wow.
Yep.
So what were some of your involvement here at the J School? I know you were involved in some clubs. Good Morning KU. I'm supposed to ask you about your time with You at the U on Good Morning KU. Do you remember that?
Yes, that's right. So the U at the U was Cal's probably So proud. The U at the U was, so I worked for the marketing department at the KU Memorial Unions. And this was a way to kind of tie in Good Morning KU because, simultaneously Good Morning KU would take place right over there in the Union on that main floor, I think the fourth floor, right? And it was a way I guess it was a segment that Cal might have come up with for me to share what was going on at the Union on that particular, maybe it was week. So, because there really is like a lot going on for students in the Union. And I think sometimes a lot of it goes unheard. So that was like a little segment. We did a little tie-in between what I was doing at the Memorial Unions and then what Cal was trying to, push out on Good Morning KU. So that was great. I do remember that. Although you heard me joke earlier, being in front of the TV and reading off of a teleprompter definitely told me the side of journalism that I didn't want to be in or knew that I couldn't thrive in. And then what else? I guess I did already allude to Advertising Club that, in a sense I could, if I really wanted to, probably go back and attribute a lot of where I am today to that. That's what initially even took me on a trip to New York. And one of the agencies we had visited on that trip is the agency I actually started with. And I was there, Gray, it's called Gray. I was there for 1.5 years. So I would definitely attribute that job hire to the Advertising Club. Definitely a very invaluable experience.
No, that sounds great. I'm still involved with the ad club, and we need to have you as a Zoom speaker one of these days.
Yeah, that would be great.
So was advertising, strategic communication, was that always kind of your career aspiration, or when did that interest kind of develop?
So I had chosen, I definitely came into college knowing, okay, this is what I'm going to major in. I probably was thinking in my head loosely marketing to some extent, whatever that means. Maybe I even could take it broader. Maybe it was communications of sorts. I knew I had, writing is a strength. Communication is a strength, being able to articulate my thoughts, whatever. Okay, so how do I turn that into a career? And I do remember at the time, Steve, your position, he had kind of told me, I think StratCom might sound like the path for you. So I started in it and I graduated in it. I got the minor in business, which I loved. I think my brain does think in that. I like numbers. Like sometimes I like the black and white thing. So I think I really did enjoy those classes. And then I got the psychology minor because I love people and I love trying to think about the way people think, what makes them tick, how I can get them to buy my Subway sandwiches, all that good stuff. So I did do those 2 minors, and those I hadn't planned on, those I peppered those in, and I thought that those were both wonderful. Definitely learned a lot with in the business classes and in the psychology classes too.
Yeah, StratCom and psychology and business, that's definitely
exactly
a great combination for sure. So what are some of those skills? I know you touched about the writing and doing a little bit with the numbers in business. What are some of the skills your time at KU that still you use every day?
Yeah, I think general brand knowledge, thinking about, okay, how do you effectively target consumers? I mean, nobody has taught me that since I started here. It's kind of, I picked it up at some point. I think pretty darn sure I picked it up prior to ever starting a job here. Little things even that kind of make me laugh, but I still think of Professor Bobkowski hyperlinking things. I have a pet peeve when people just like drop like a link in an email. And I remember he always was really big on you make it a clean, nice link, and you use the words to distinguish what it is. So even little things like that, I'm like, okay, I learned that in class, so my tuition dollars are working. Being able to do effective research. I mean, again, I think some of that could possibly be self-taught, but I do remember I took a couple of research classes at KU. And I think that has paid off. There's definitely research aspects to my job. So, and then I think just, maybe outside of the classroom, but in general, I very much attribute a lot of where I am to the KU network in general. The Kansas network is real. It's huge. I mean, I ended up in Dublin, Ireland, for goodness sakes. This morning when I was walking in, this is a true story. I was walking into the office this morning, and I was up here on the 13th floor, and this nice gal in front of me held the door for me. And I said, thank you. And then she turned around and looked, and sure enough, it's a friend of mine from KU. We hadn't seen each other in a while. So we hugged, we ended up like catching up in the kitchen. And one of my gals I work with, she came into the kitchen and I introduced Lucy to, her name's Elizabeth as well. I said, this is another Kansas girl. And Elizabeth, I swear, she's like rolling her eyes because Kansas people are just popping up everywhere. Actually, right now on the Subway team, it's the second agency, second team I've been on where I've had a very smart strategist on my team who is a KU grad. So, you know, it just goes to show the KU network is real.
Well, Elizabeth, I think we're about to wrap up. Hey, I just want to say, I appreciate your time. I'm glad you're doing so much better. It sounds like you're doing great with Dentsu Creative and Subway. So cheers to your careers. If you got that nice KU mug.
Yeah. Cheers.
All right. Cheers, Elizabeth. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.